I know it's something we all want to avoid, but it's not going to go away. It is but a natural part of life. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha, says the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. If you are born, it is but certain that you will die. And if you die, it is but certain that you will be reborn. And there is no way of avoiding this. I'm sure many of us, through our doctors and our insurance policies, would like to live forever. And we do our best. But our sages and scriptures tell us, on the day that it is destined, we will go. Swami Vivekananda's Guru Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, I laugh when the doctor tells his patient, don't worry, I am there. The question, I think, was, how does a saint like Baba leave his body? But I thought we need to talk a little bit first to get there. All this is simply information. And I don't expect that any of us will know it any better when I'm done. But we'll have a piece of information. That information that we can contemplate, ponder, read some more. I do not have all my books with me, but what little information I have with me traveling, and what little is known and understood, I'll try and share. Baba, if you read in his Play of Consciousness, talks about, I have seen death with my own eyes. And he quotes a poem of Tukaram Maharaj. Apula marana, apla dolan pahilo. Of course, we know he's not talking about his physical death because he was still alive and we spent time in his physical company, in his presence. But he talks about the death of the ego. And I thought we should begin there. Because possibly for every spiritual seeker, the one and only obstacle of all the others is his or her own ego. And as we progress along in our understanding, in our wisdom, the ego gets subtler. And therefore harder, and therefore even more difficult to let go, because I think I don't have an ego. Because I have been meditating, I have been praying, I have been. Baba used to tell a great story. Nasruddin was a therapist. Or is a therapist. And somebody goes to him and says, I get these headaches. So Nasruddin says, do you smoke? He said, no. Do you drink? He said, no. And Nasruddin asks him all these questions. And he says, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do this? To everything the man says, no, 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 no. And Nasruddin says, I think I know the reason for your headache. Whoever's laughing has got it. It is your sense of righteousness. Your sense of being correct. Your sense of being proper. And in the meanwhile, looking down upon others. Because when I think I am correct, I'm automatically looking down upon others, is the cause or reason of your headache. Now, Baba never advised us, and neither would I, that okay, go smoke and drink and do all of these things. No. Just get off your high horse. Just come to ground, come to this planet Earth, and live like everyone else, amidst everyone else. Understand and know yourself first. That whole idea of separation, of duality, of the other, must die first. And I didn't use the word gotten rid of, eradicated, lost, must die. So in order to understand the death of any great saint, we must first realize that his identity of I, mine, is gone. I shared very recently that we often hear that Bhagwan always referred to the body as this one. And I say this with a challenge to all of us in society to go out and say, this one wants chai. This one would like lunch. This one wants to go for a walk. Even to friends who are on the path with us. Because it doesn't come so easily and naturally as, I want chai. We'd have to train ourselves to say, this one. And then, when you're in deep sleep, and there when somebody wakes you up, when this one comes naturally, not who woke me up, or who is disturbing me, who is here doing what to me or I, but the same thought, who has woken this body up. And that's a very far-fetched thought. But to a sage who has abolished I, mine, even in the path of yoga, in Haridwar I meet Swamis, as I travel I meet different people. And everybody wants to say, these people have come with me. I have brought them. I have taught them, I have trained them, I have prepared them, I have given them all the knowledge that they know. So I would say both are on sticky ground now. The I and the they. Because we tend to think, I have taught, and they tend to think, I have learnt. And neither has it been taught, nor has it been learnt. I'm deviating away from my subject, but I'm cautious and careful and all of that because as I travel often, I'm advised sometimes, just say it to them. Govinda sometimes says, good, give it to them as it is. Or tell it to them as it is. When he drives me to a program, he just says, just tell it to them. And I look at him, I say, okay. But we know it's not so easy to hear the truth even when we know, because there's that sensitive ego. And it goes back to that very question I asked yesterday or day before. When I am doing something that's not correct, when I am offending someone, if I'm so wise, then I know I'm performing that action, that kriya through my body or through this body. Where is the wisdom in that moment? Many years ago on the train, I found this magazine, and you read crossword puzzles and quizzes and so on and so forth. I shared this in Walden some years ago. You have to think. From a tree, a ripe mango is seen falling. To pick up that mango goes running he or she who has not seen it. But the mango is picked up by a third, not by the one who's seen it, not by the one who's running, but by someone else. The mango is eaten by someone else, not by the one who's seen it, not by the one who's run, not by the one who's picked it up. So he asks us, who are these for? Somebody has seen it, somebody runs towards it, somebody picks it up, and somebody eats it. All that somebody is just the body. The legs run, the eye see it, the feet or legs run, the hand picks it up, the mouth eats it. There is no four, but he plays with us here. He plays with us that in a way, these are all independent of each other. Though they live within this body, they are part of this body, yet independently the eyes see, independently the legs run, independently the hands pick it up, independently the mouth eats it. And we could even say, going further, that who is actually the enjoyer, which is where we want to eventually get to today. So, the death of the ego is a big subject. I actually brought a poem that Hari Om Shan, the poet, the singer sings. He simply says, he's praying to his Guru. O Lord, let my mind, which is filled with pride, touch the dust of your feet. Let my mind, which is filled with ego and fluctuations, repeat the name of the self. I could not wash the filth of this mind. This life could never become yours, and I could not surrender. I could not even bow to you as a lover, as a beloved. But I pray to you, please uplift me, even if I've just fallen in front of you. I was lost in discussions about knowledge. Due to my ignorance or karma, misfortune, I fell asleep listening to those talks. When my inner eye opened, my mind began to weep. Even if all around me people are sleeping, let me wake up. However I am, just as I am, real or unreal, true or false, I have come to the faultless one, seeking refuge. My prayer is this: let me become empty or make me empty. And let that flame of love light up within me. It's a poem we've heard often around Baba, around by Hari Om Shan singing. And I'm sure that many of us who understand Hindi and understand the poem think, wow, what a wonderful poem. But when we begin to realize the simple things he says, like we talk, but yet instead of the wisdom awakening us or waking us up, we become asleep. We don't wake up to the knowledge. We don't imbibe the knowledge. We don't make that wisdom a part of us. Instead, the ego becomes bigger. And as he prays, let me become empty. And empty, a very simple example is a professor goes to a Zen master and wants knowledge. The Zen master offers him tea and begins to pour. The cup is full, flows to the saucer, overflows to the table. And when it begins to overflow onto the floor, the professor says, wait, stop. You see the cup is already full. The Zen master goes, your cup is also full. Just as the tea overflows onto the saucer, onto the table, onto the floor, the knowledge that will be poured into you or given to you will simply just pour out and will not pour in. So I realized actually that last night as we were chanting the Shiva Mahimna, that yesterday was an important day in my life about 36 years ago. The 24th of April, 7:30 or so p.m. Indian time. I had come to meet Baba. I had actually come to drop then Malti at the ashram and I was going back to Mumbai and she said, come to meet him. I said, no, it's not necessary. I met him this morning. She said, no, just get his blessings because I was getting ready to give my entrance exams for my engineering college. She said, just meet him, get his blessings. I said, I got it this morning. But she insisted, so I went and that meeting changed my entire life. I never went back to engineering college and I'm doing what you see me doing. So, that was 24th of April, 1978. And so I say now I do human engineering. Mechanical was going to be my field, but so we'll try to understand this human body. Modern society has tried to hide death. We don't see death. Right? If I ask you in the West, do you see death? Unless you work in the hospital or I don't know where else, you don't see death. We grow up in India seeing death, human death anyway for sure. Animal death is different. I'm sure you see lots of kangaroo deaths here, but I'm talking about human death. The poet saints tell us that we will all go on 4 shoulders. Because in India the tradition is that 4 people of the family, usually the son and the relatives, whoever's they are chosen and they have a job and things are assigned. There's a whole procession that is taken out. And most Hindus consider it auspicious to see such a procession, the death of someone. And of course, it's a great reminder to each one of us, as Kabir says, that one day I too shall go on 4 shoulders. Of course, India is also changing now because nobody has time. They just want to instantly take it, the body in a hearse or an ambulance to the cremation and be done with it. We had ceremonies on the 10th 11th, 12th day, family. 13th day for friends, real close. And then on the 14th day, where everyone was invited, and then more could go on. But again, as life has gotten busier, none of this really happens anymore. The idea was we pray for the onward movement of the soul of that family member who has gone. And we took 13 days to mourn their passing. One of the ways I think of it as is the soul as it leaves, the Atman as it leaves this body, travels, and possibly till it arrives at its next destination, till it arrives wherever it is going to. That's a period of time. On the 10th, 11th, 12th days, food was made, offered, then put out, and it was believed that the crow, if it ate or pecked at that food, or crows came and took that food or partook of that food, then that soul, that Atman, was pleased, was happy, was contented. And of course, thanks to Wi-Fi and wireless, just as sparrows have disappeared, crows are disappearing too. And so, adjustments are made. When I asked Lavarji this, when my parents died, why is a crow so important? He said, we are taught that a crow has that subtle eye to see if the soul, the form which we cannot see with these eyes, has partaken of that food. And only then will the crow come and partake of that food, once that soul has partaken of that food that has been left for it. These are traditions that I believe have existed possibly everywhere, but as society has modernized, changed, we've sort of gotten rid of this because the physical eye does not see this, the gross mind does not understand this, so we think, I don't see the soul. And now, of course, I don't even see the crow. So, who do I put it out there for? So, we eradicate, we eliminate, because we have now become modern, and so on and so forth. But if you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, a few times, because it takes, I would say, a few times to get, and you read the various stories that are in there. Srimad Bhagavatam is a text that Leo mentioned the other day. It's 2 thick volumes, and I thought if anybody's interested, you can see Ravi, he can organize it for you to get it, because there's a press called Gita Press. The book only costs probably 200 rupees, that volume, because Gita Press wants that knowledge is disseminated as much as possible to as many people as possible, so they've kept their costs quite low. Shipping will be more expensive. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, the whole text, when we hear about it, is based upon King Parikshit, who is going to die. And so the question that he poses is his death is going to happen in 7 days. And Brahmanji Maharaj would often joke and say, everybody's death is going to happen within 7 days. So everybody is going to die within one of these 7 days. So he said, we are all like Parikshit, we are going to die. But Parikshit wants freedom from the cycle of birth and death. So he approaches the sages to get knowledge, to get wisdom. And now, I always preface such stories by saying that we have to realize that it is not in that moment or in that instant that he has become wise or become free. It is because of countless lifetimes of satsanga, of the company of great sages, that that moment arrives in his lifetime and he's ready. How in India, when somebody is sick or dying or will die or may die or whatever, a priest is called, and there's a mantra, Mahasamadhi mantra, which I think is misunderstood by everybody. Everybody thinks the more japa I do of this mantra, this person will live. And the priest, of course, says, okay, 1 gold this, 1 silver this, and 1 this, and 1 that, and I will do so much japa and everything will be fine. And of course, the family is really happy that he's never going to die again now because the Mahasamadhi mantra has been done. It says, Triyambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urva dukamiva bandhanan mrityo mukshiya mam mritat. We worship the three-eyed, we could say, Lord Shiva. One sees simply the past, present, and future. Whose fragrance spreads upon this earth and who nourishes and takes care of everyone. So first, he's praying to the Lord that give me your grace, give me your blessings. When I die, it should be like, I don't know how many of you have grown melons or of that family. And I think here they talk about a cucumber. But if we imagine that vine, that creeper is growing along the ground, and when that fruit or vegetable is ripe, it simply separates itself from the vine, naturally, from the creeper. And so he is praying that I want to go towards immortality, to becoming free of this cycle of birth and death, naturally. If you've ever walked up to a fruit tree and just put your hand to a fruit, when the fruit is just ripe, even though the wind has been blowing and so many things have been happening, the fruit just falls into your hand. You haven't done anything other than just put your hand to that fruit. I hope you've had that experience. Only then will you understand this. Because if you haven't understood that, then you won't understand what I'm saying. That you just put your hand and the fruit falls into your hand. You haven't twisted it, you haven't turned it, you haven't done anything. You just put your hand and the fruit falls. I love it when that happens because then I know the fruit is just right. Just ripe. And you eat it right then and there. Because if you go anywhere and discuss it and talk about it, then they want a piece and a bite and the whole thing is lost. And so, that's how ready one has to be, or one should be, or he's praying that I should be, to just... So imagine that death is coming, and instead of calling 911 or whatever you call here in Australia, let the ambulance come or let the doctor come or hide me inside the closet. He won't see me. Because Vedanta talks about, and so does Shaivism, I would say, right? We have Kim, who has done a lot of study on the tattvas. And so, tattvas are principles or elements from which creation has come about, and so is this body a part of that. So, we see the physical body, which is made of food. And we sustain it, we keep it going in that manner. Each one has this body and it lasts, I say sometimes just a few days inside the mother's womb, sometimes for a few weeks, few months, and then some are born and go instantly, some are born and live for a few days, some are born and like us live and live and live and live and hope that we never die. Right? If I ask anyone in the room, I know now you'll raise your hand because you'll think I'm spiritually knowledgeable. But if you really think to yourself when you are alone and ask, do I want to go yet? The yet is not necessary, but we always add that yet. Right? You would say, no, I have a few things I would like to achieve. Some things left to do. And fear comes up. Sutra in Patanjali, I'm trying to think, what is that? Abhinivesha, it's called. Clinging on, holding on. And now, it doesn't just happen now in this lifetime, it is something that has happened again and again and again and again. And therefore the mantra says that I should just drop off. That I should just shed this body. So when you talk about a yogi, that is exactly what he does. He sheds the body. The 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita discusses death. So if you have a Srimad Bhagavad Gita at home, you could read it, the 8th chapter. But you have to read and understand it that Krishna, advises that one has to first make a habit of having the mantra happen constantly within the mind. Because inside this physical body is a subtle body. The subtle body comprises of 17 or 19 limbs. 5 organs of action, 5 senses of perception, 5 pranas, the antakarana, which can be broken up into 4, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahamkara, which makes it 19. And these are what go with us, the subtle, with all of the impressions, to the next new body. So when we see a newborn child, one is kicking, the feet are, hands are like, he's lying, but it's lots of movement. And one is totally still, not dead, but still, because there's a difference. One is crying, one is laughing, and possibly so many other variations in between. We'd have to go to a nursery, in a hospital, and to see all these babies and see how many karmas, or how many different types of karmas each subtle body, each subtle and causal body has brought with it. There is the emotional, mental, and wisdom koshas or sheaths. If this is the annamaya or the physical gross body, gross kosha, the pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya are in the subtle body. So, we carry all these things, we could say impressions, with us when we leave this, shed this physical body. Everything that we feel, think, and have learnt, gone through in this lifetime, karma, goes. So therefore, the sages teach us, don't cry, don't be sad. It's only the external cover that has been shed. The inside is still alive and well, and is just looking for the next place, the next body to, next that which is being prepared to enter. So, the causal body is only anandamaya or bliss. Therefore, when we go into the deep sleep state, there are no thoughts, there's simply deep sleep. I didn't dream, I didn't, no nightmares, nothing, just... And that, the sages tell us, is closest to the self, to the Atman. And so, the sage has understood all this. He has understood. We chant the Nirvan Shatakam, the 6 stanzas of salvation, which chanted tomorrow as part of the intensive. If you read the meaning of that, you will realize, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the subconscious, I am not the ego, I am not the prana, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. And what am I? I am consciousness, I am bliss, I am Shiva, I am Shiva. So the mind has to come to rest. The mind has to come to be immersed in that experience at all times. Not identify in any way with anything that's happening. And Baba often used to say, we take great pride in this human body, but if you really ask yourself what value the human body has, he would say, other than being the means or the vehicle to take you to that experience, to that knowledge, to that understanding, the body itself has no value, the human body. So you would say, why are we so proud about who I think I am? But you need to understand all this in order to understand how is it that a sage leaves his body? How is it that a sage just, knows and boom, he's gone. And here we are going, no, right? Because we say, no, I like it, I don't want to go yet. The body is not functioning, the body is not working. So many times we hear somebody is in a coma, has been in that, whatever that state is, and not going. And so we can only begin to imagine, I would say, the amount of attachment that person or that individual has to that body. Because there's no other reason, nothing else that we could say holds them other than that attachment. And the saint is exactly the opposite. Ready. Time has come, gone. So the 12th and the 13th verse of the 8th chapter says, Sarvadvarani sanyamya mano hridi nridyacha murdhanyadhaya atmanah pranam astito yoga dharanam Om ityekaksharam brahma vyahan mamanusmaran yaprayati tyajan deham sayati paramam gatim. So here, Krishna, after having talked to Arjuna in the beginning of how a yogi over his lifetime, or we could say lifetimes, has focused his mind upon the truth. And on this day of his departure, when he has realized, when he has come to know that I'm going to leave this body. Each one of us has 5 types of breath or prana in this body. And each breath, each prana, each vital force performs different functions. So, he gathers all his vital force, we could say, all his prana. And because I'm aware a little bit of what happened with Baba, I would say that it took him about 30 or so minutes. Why it takes that much time? But Krishna says here that this body is known as the city of 9 gates. 2, 4, 6, 7, and 2 below. Make it 9. Navadvare pure dehi, as the Gita explains to us. So, he says, the sage, the yogi, like I talked about yesterday, withdraws all his senses. He closes all his gates. And he brings all of it to, we could say, the heart region, where the yogic scriptures say the mind dwells in this body. Now he's gathered everything, and he then brings his prana, that life force, that vital energy that keeps us alive. Death in the Indian tradition happens, or the soul leaves this body in at least 4 ways. One is through the anal opening, and most people who go to the bathroom or go to the toilet, when they are leaving the body, you have to assume that that is the port that they have used to leave. The soul has used the anal port to leave the body. I remember some years ago somebody told me in America that everybody takes a shit when they leave. I said, no, not true at all. And they said, no, most people that I have seen, that's what they have done. I said, well, then I have to tell you that yoga says that when somebody leaves through that port, they excrete, and therefore that's what happens. And they say that is the worst form of passing, because that person needs then to do a lot more good life, live a good life, to uplift. That soul has to uplift itself. Then it's through the mouth. The mouth is open. Then it's through the eyes. And then one that the yogis use is this here, what we call the Sahasrara. As Krishna says, he brings everything up, and as it rises, he repeats Om. Now we have to realize in this moment that one can only repeat Om if one has been repeating Om throughout one's life. It's not going to be an accident. And I'm sure that even if the CD or iPod outside is playing Om, which people do for families or for a family member, that unless the inside, every cell, every molecule, everything of the body is in that, won't happen like this. Also, as you realize, he has gathered everything. It's not that he's just going to... He has prepared himself. And as he repeats Om, the soul, the Atman, exits through the Sahasrara. And Krishna says, Sayati Paramam Gatim. That being, that person, that individual attains to the highest. He has freed himself from this whole cycle of birth and death. So, Om is what is then described, explained what is Om, and it is said in the Patanjali Sutras, Tasya Vachaka Pranavaha, that is what is shown or is expressed through Om. So, the yogi is actually reminding himself or telling his Atman, just like we tell ourselves, I'm going to Lord Summers today. Or on Sunday we'll say, I'm going back to Melbourne. Whether it is to the car, to the GPS, to with a friend. So everybody knows when we ask where is he or she gone, they say there. So we could say that the yogi tells his own Atman that our destination is what is expressed through Om. Om is, as the Upanishads describe to us, the primordial sound from which creation has come to be. So everything, it is described as being contained in Om and being Om. So when one listens to sound and all of the other variations are let go, the yogis tell us that then one hears Om. A lot of our different Upanishads, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, all of this talks about the kinds of death and this death. Over the years, often as I've traveled, I've met people, they've asked, do you think Baba knew? And the answer then and now is yes. But you look at all the things that he physically did and create for that day, October 2nd, 1982. I would say that he probably knew already, whenever he knew, that's Swami Muktananda, that this approximately will be my time of going. But I would say that for sure, in May 1977, on his birthday, he probably got a good idea of how many more years he would live upon this planet. Because then, the speed with which he worked in his life was just amazing. I was there that day, that morning, when he told his attendant Noni to tell the doctor, Dr. Thakkar and Dr. Kapoor, and his nurse, an American nurse, Narsibai, to be in his room after lunch, because he was going to have a big heart attack. Now, most people would not say this, you know. You have a few thousand people, you're going to go give a program and tell your doctor to be ready after lunch because I'm going to have a big heart attack. Now, 1977, I was 14 some years old. He'd already had one in February. And he had been in Mumbai, and he was very angry at his people for having taken him to the hospital in Mumbai. And of course, my first conversation with him was there in Mumbai in March 1977. I had just given my 10th grade exams, and he was discussing with me the future of my life. And I gave him my great royal plans, I could say, which of course changed on April 24th. So therefore, these times I remember because they were just as important in my life as in Baba's life. And so he came back to Ganeshpuri. He had his first set of swamis that he made on the same birthday. It was big. Many people had come from many places. And you have to realize he'd already had supposedly a heart attack sometime in 72, 73, which I don't know about. But whether he went to the hospital or not, we don't know. But he had one in February 97, then again in May 1977. And I remember being there. We didn't have lunch because he was going to have his heart attack. So lunch was not so important because Noni said, be here. Our job was to answer the door, open the door, let the people in, let the people out, and manage who comes in and out. Get rid of the useless ones or not approved. Because, you know, when the news spreads throughout the ashram, everybody wants to be by Baba because they can be of help. And so, amazingly enough, he had lunch. He came and lay down in his bed. He rang the bell. He said, call the doctor. Now, being young, it was a little funny to think that How can he manipulate that he will have a heart attack now? But then we were taught never to question him, do what he says. So we did. So the doctors came, everybody came, and then he's gone. Meanwhile, some really big doctors came from Mumbai, which I was really impressed with. I was like, wow, the trustees or whoever it was got really organized. And they were all like 2 or 3 big doctors, the doctor, the trustees, the this one, the that one. Baba's bed was against the wall, and at the foot of the bed, and here were a bunch of people. And the rumor was, he's gone. And it spread out, and 2 of his swamis came and started meditating there, because they were going to be the successors of Baba's lineage or tradition, and they were just going to absorb all of the Shakti that Baba was giving in that moment as he was leaving his body. I didn't understand all this then. I only found all this out much later. I was too young to realize the politics of this life. I don't know if I understand it now, but anyway. That was interesting. I thought, senior swamis, they're probably, how we have positive energy. They're sending positive energy. So I had no time to get involved in any of this. I just was doing what I was to do. Take this out, take that out, bring this in, bring that out, and take this one out, and this and that, and whatever. Around 2:30, Baba opens his eyes. He looks at everybody and says, "What are you doing? Have you had lunch?" And the main elderly doctor looked at him and said, "But Baba, you were gone." He said, I talked to my guru. He sent me back. And of course, if those of you remember, in a talk someday or some months later, he explained or described this in great detail. Not the conversation, but how he had gone. And his guru sent him back and said, "Muktananda, you have work to do. You can't leave yet." My own belief, which I've never confirmed or discussed or asked anybody, is that his prarabdha as Swami Muktananda probably finished on that day, in May 1977. Because if you look at his pictures, there was a change in the look, in the body, what he looked like before and what he looked like after. Over time, there's been a change. He becomes younger. It's different. Of course, all this you have to study with an open mind and allow yourself to feel, know, understand, think, contemplate on your own. Because a lot of stuff can otherwise be fed. And so then he lived. As we traveled the 3rd tour, he was in touch with Venkappa. The room that he had lived in the ashram, it was his second dwelling place within that ashram. He had it broken, removed, and a grave, we could say, built there. And then wood planks put on top. When he came back from his 3rd world tour, in the evening when nobody was there and just Venkappa and him, he went and checked that Venkappa had done what I had been told. He danced on that wooden planks and checked that the grave, the place to bury him, is ready. He told Venkappa, "Bahut acha, very good." And I remember that we received letters from Ganeshpuri, Baba received rather, of devotees writing that Venkappa has lost his brains, breaking down the place where Baba had dwelled, where Baba had sent so many people to meditate, and of course they didn't know that a grave was being created, a samadhi was being created. And then, as many of you know, in May 1982, he appointed Swami Chidvilasananda and myself as his successors. And then we had a program in Mumbai, an intensive. And then we came back from Mumbai, and this was probably the first week of June. Baba, his attendant Sevananda, and myself. And there was a discussion of going to Kashmir. And Baba had booked, I think, the weekend of 7th and 8th, possibly September, to have an intensive in Mumbai. And then that Monday to go to Kashmir. Sivananda argued with Baba in this time, in June 1982, that we come back to Ganeshpuri, rest for a week, and go the following Monday. Because that was the best advice he could give Baba. Now, I never really talked to Baba, I never discussed such things with Baba because, as Leo said, that presence, the awe-inspiring magnificence, whatever we want to call it, the best thing was just be quiet. Because everything else was just nonsense as far as I understood it. So I just stood there, listened to Baba saying, I'm going on that Monday from Mumbai after the intensive, and him arguing that we come back, rest, and go the following Monday. And this went on, seemed like for hours, but it was only a few minutes. And I just looked at him, I said, Sivananda, I think he's the guru, we do what he wants. That was a lot of courage I felt to make such a statement in front of Baba. Of course, I didn't look at Baba, I just looked at Sivananda and talked to him. And Sivananda looked at me and said, you think so? I said, yeah. That was the end of the conversation. We went to Kashmir, we came back as Baba wanted. And on the Sunday, I think it was, that we came back, every person that Baba met, he said, come next Saturday, come next Saturday, come next Saturday, come next Saturday. Some people took him seriously and came. Some people thought, Baba, he just wants me to come and spend the weekend with him. I'll go like I always do on Sunday. And they said, yes, Baba, I'm coming. Of course, they didn't mean it, they just said it. And we came back. Life was normal in the ashram. There was no major change or shift or movement. Everybody just went on. Everything just continued. And there's a video of Baba sharing about the time that his guru passed away. I think it was the Guru Purnima in Deville. And probably a very emotional moment where he shares about his guru's passing. And that supposedly was showed in the ashram that night. And I think the video department chose it. Some people say Baba told them to show it. But I think that it just the Shakti coincidence, we could call it, that video was shown. And I think I shared earlier on this trip that sometime during that stay, Swami Krishnananda, in charge of the kitchen, came to Baba and said, how much food or how many laddus to organize for Sunday? 3rd of October was a Bandara. And Baba said 5,000. And Swamiji said, but Baba, we have only 1,000. Baba said 5,000. And he cleared to Baba, this is your wish. You want 5,000. I will only get that because you're saying so. So of course, Baba left his body on the 2nd. And so for the next 3 days, 3rd, 4th, 5th, we had God knows how many people. Any number anyone says is correct because the ashram was open 24 hours and people just came. In the way it spread and people from all over the world came, and as Dayananda shared with us that even customs and immigration, everyone sort of said, Muktananda, go. Because everything was timed and things had to be done. 3 days was just, the body was kept so that people from all over the world who wanted to could come and see and have his final darshan. And in Indian tradition, again, just like the funeral home prepares the physical body and makes it beautiful, as if nothing has ever happened to it, and you have a viewing. In the Indian tradition, the priests come, ceremonies are performed, the body is bathed, and new clothes are put, and then rites all along the way. We have 16 ceremonial rites that are performed for a human being. The 15th is marriage, and the 16th is death. So there are 14 before marriage, 15th is marriage, and 16th is Antyeshti. So one day I remember reading, and I said to one of the acharyas, I said, so after marriage one dies right away. And he just laughed. There's nothing else in between. In the beginning is, he's conceived, he's born, he eats, and his name or she, and all of these things happen. And then the 15th is marriage, and he just lives. Boom, he's gone. So these ceremonies were performed for Baba. Each person, depending on the place you belong in within society, the priests are aware of a man, a woman, a holy man. And so ceremonies are performed according to how the individual has been in his place in society. And then, in Baba's case, that body was taken to his guru's shrine. Most normal cases in the Hindu tradition, whether it's boy or girl, male or female, the body is cremated. I read that in some time it used to be that the body would be cut up and thrown in 4 directions in the forest. And this probably was when the population was less and allowed to be eaten by the animals. The Parsis still do that, or at least used to, right? Yeah, they hang it in the well and the vultures will eat it. So, that which came from dust goes back to dust. And it is believed that a great saint who has become one with consciousness, become one with truth, carries that vibration with him or her. And therefore, such great beings are buried, and that place is called a Samadhi. And a person goes there, and it is believed that that Chaitanya, that consciousness, radiates from that place and continues to bless those who visit it. So, I believe, yes, Baba was very ready. Baba was clear. Baba knew. And that evening, a couple of hours was spent between Noni, his attendant, Sevananda, and Narsibai, trying to keep it all going. But around 10:30, Baba sent them both away and said, I want to be alone. He said, I'm fine. And so I assume that he used those 30 minutes to do what Krishna has explained here, gather his prana, bring everything together, close all his doors, use the Sahasrara to leave his body. And I believe that just as he was ready to exit, he rang his bell for his attendant. So at approximately 11:03, the attendant goes in. When he goes in, he finds that Baba is gone. He calls the nurse comes. But Baba had had a pacemaker installed in his body in January 1980. So the machine shows a pulse, and the nurse realizes that it's simply the machine, the pacemaker that's showing a pulse, but that the body is gone. So when I walked in at about 10 after 11, the first thought was, he is gone. And she looked up from what she was doing, because of course as a trained nurse, she has to do what she's supposed to do. She simply looked at me and through her eyes just expressed the same thought which I had, that he's gone. Meanwhile, the attendant wanted, and then the doctors came, and everything happened for another maybe 15-20 minutes till Venkappa came, and then Chidvilasananda came, and then everybody, probably within their own being, knew that he's left. So said, please just leave him alone. Seated him in lotus, and Bhaskar, who was the owner of the restaurant in Ganeshpuri, who just recently passed, was called because he was present when Bhagavad Nityananda had taken Samadhi. So Venkappa said, let's ask him what all Baba did for Bhagwan, and we can do those things to Baba, honoring our Guru like he honored his Guru. So the body, of course, was seated in lotus and cushions and all of that. You see pictures of all of that. And for the next 3 days, some people cried a lot. Some people went through a lot of emotion. But you could feel that the presence of Baba was just as much there. And I vividly remember a dream. We buried him on the 5th of October. The 6th of October was my 20th birthday. And we had a 30-day chant, Om Namo Bhagavate Muktanandaya. Somewhere, one night as I lay there, I dream that it's in the morning around 10 o'clock, and I'm walking in the hallway outside what we knew as Bhagway's office, just out of the temple, turn the corner, and Baba is coming. It's just the two of us. And I said to him, but Baba, we buried you some days ago. You're supposed to be inside that samadhi. And he laughs. He says, now I am free of that body. I can go wherever I want. Nobody can tell me where I can go or cannot go. And I wake up from my dream. And I also probably laugh to myself that the Guru is now free of that physical form, of this form as we knew as Muktananda. He can. And out from my mouth came that day we buried him, that he is now, we have not buried him there in that grave, in that samadhi, but he has actually entered the hearts of his devotees, all over the world. So, in that moment, when we think of his teaching, God dwells within you as you, or we think of the Guru. Naresh said one verse yesterday, I remember the other one, which is Yagno Vratam Tapodanam Japas Tirtam Tatayvacha Guru Tattvam Avijnaya Mudaste Charate Jana. Which also relates to the verse that Leo talked about. That one does ceremonies, one does tapascharya, one does austerities, one does all these things. One goes on pilgrimages. But if one has not recognized the Guru within oneself, Guru Tattvam Avijnaya, then he is just the fool hovering amongst us, amongst the people. So, as I said the other day, unless one has really spent not just time, but a time where one has understood a being like Baba, in some of these pictures we see around Anandmayi Ma. Of course, today there are many, I would say, who claim through the YouTube, through television, through this, I got it. And the disciples also proclaim, he's got it, she's got it. So I'll stop at this emotional moment. We have a video which is, I think, almost 90 minutes or 2 hours of all of this and all of the different people sharing all of the different things and talking about all of what they experience and what they know and this and that and that and that. And I think, but the most important thing for me was to know that Baba knew, Baba prepared. His exit for him was graceful, was beautiful, and his whole, that 1 month long chant we had was just all of the, positive adjectives that we can use. And that even today, when we hear that chant, it takes us back to that feeling in that month of October 1982. And of course, after that, the chant finished and the mind started. And that goes on. But for that month, it was almost as if time froze and everybody remained in a beautiful place. And so, as I said yesterday, somehow that feeling, that emotion, that experience could be carried within our hearts, within our being at all times. Sans the ego. But the ego creeps in, the mind creeps in, I creep in, mind creeps in, and that then diminishes. But if we can get rid of everything else and just, it's a feeling, when I think about it, it envelops everything that is I. And the space around, I shared with Devyani and Kaveri later, that our Sri Ram yesterday was wonderful, the kirtan, the mahimna, the meditation. And as I said here in Darshan and everybody came up, everybody had big smiles. And I said to Devyani, it's not like we did anything to say, wow, that was just wonderful. Nothing was said, but yet each individual carried a wonderful feeling within themselves. And they felt that exactly what I'm just saying, that the container was full, but full of an experience, as Vedanta says, which is indescribable. The scriptures talk about bringing a steadiness to life, bringing ourselves to a place within which is to that place. I think we all know that place within ourselves, because we've all been there. Yesterday we were there for sure. Because every single individual, I don't think anybody came up that was not smiling. And different degrees of smile, but everybody had a smile. And some would do this, and some would smile, and some would just, you could just tell the body was just, the drink was good, or the food was good, whatever it was, But the question always in my mind is, how can we have this always? I'm sure most minds have this question. How can it be that every chant is like this? How can it be that every meeting is like this? How can it be that every single moment of what all happens in our life is perfect? The scriptures talk about this, that a being like Bhagwan, Baba, have now a choice, the freedom to come or not come, to be born or not to be born. Whereas until you are bound by the cycle of karma, you will come, you will go, you will come, you will go. But a free being just comes, does what needs to be done. So when we read about Adi Shankaracharya, we read about Swami Vivekananda, we read about different beings. They live on this planet for maybe 30 years. I think Vivekananda was 49 years, 48 years. So then you wonder, some people say, why do good people only live for so long? But I think they come, they infuse goodness upon this earth, and that goodness stays for so long. It's somehow carried on through a few generations, and then just like different ceremonies that I said get dropped away, and then they say, okay, time to go back, waken up everybody and say, do this. So they come back, again they waken up those who are ready, those who are willing, and they go, oh wow. And then, so that's what I think. I think doing his satsang, doing his work, definitely I would say Baba had a great time. And I think there was no doubt that he loved doing what he did. He loved satsang, he loved chanting, he loved people, he loved meditation. And we saw towards the end of his life, he loved giving Shaktipat. Not that he didn't before, but before he sort of rationed it, we could say. He waited, but then once he knew I'm going, he thought, okay, come. Whoever wants it, get it. Now who got it, didn't get it, God knows. But there are people who met him just on the last day of his life in Ganeshpuri, or the last week, or the last few days, whatever. And they talk about the transformation, just like Keval talked about his friend yesterday. I believe that all of us have some karmic bond or tie. And I remember Claire yelling up, wondering who's going to show up at Lord Summers. She told me, you did this program in yelling up and everybody's coming, and who's going to come to Lord Summers? I said, they'll come, don't worry. She said, but everybody's here, meaning in yelling up, because we were 60, 70 of us there. And then, and look, we're all here again. Some of us back, some of us through the whole month together. And then when we think of it and we ask ourselves, what really is our bond? What really is our connection? Other than that unseen, unknown karmic bond or connection which keeps us all together, which keeps us going. And I'm sure if we sit down and analyze whether we would want to be together, we might say, I'm not so sure. But when we give up what I want, what I think I want, and go to a higher place, it's great fun. When you have such a powerful experience, there is no I who's enjoying the experience, but the experience is simply being enjoyed. And it is when the I comes in that the experience goes away. Because if we imagine that a balloon is being filled with air, so the non-air space, if there is such a thing, has to go away so that it fills with air. And any thought of I that comes in would be like a small prick in that balloon. You don't realize that the air is leaking out, or like a mismanufactured balloon or a poorly manufactured balloon, there's a weak spot. And as you blow up, that weak spot, has a little hole. You're filling it with air, but the air is leaking out. So any identification of I is like that small hole. You're having this wonderful experience, but you always, that I, the ego, also fears its own death. And most of us who've had this experience and have come back to the mind, body, ego, realize what brings each one of us each time back is this ego that says, not yet. No, I'm not going. The memory of that experience stays with us. Just like I said, we can never forget our time with Baba or things that happened around Baba, because that is just there, present, as if it was just now. I'm sure for us all, if we allowed ourselves to forget that we were in Victoria, in Lord Summers, and just allowed, if I'd thought of it and had played that Om Namo Bhagavate chant, I'm sure we would have all mentally, or at least in imagination, transported ourselves back to that time, October 3rd, 4th, 5th. And I'm sure everything would have been that experience. But then the ego, the mind, and all of that, which the subtle body, the causal body, and all of the impressions that we carry. Sometimes we want to do this and the knot doesn't go away. You think I'm moving the body so much. And you teach yoga, so when you tell somebody relax, and they say I am relaxed, and you say no, relax, and they say I am relaxed. And it's only after a few classes when you say one day relax, and they say, and then you say, oh, there, you see, and then they go, yeah, I got it. But it's taken that many classes for them to realize, to know that you're saying relaxed, they are saying relaxed, you're saying relaxed, they're saying relaxed. And it's that many classes later. And then the next class you again say, now relax more. And it goes on. So it's the same way we all carry, if we think, like I said yesterday, 8,400,000 impressions in the subtle body. And we've shed some, we still have 8 million left. And the only way is when we have that illumination, we have that knowledge of who I am, that is just burnt. Till then we just take it, carry it with us. In Hatha Yoga, they talk about all of the various bandhas. So you'd have to start practicing those bandhas, the closings. And as we all know, the teacher tells us do this, and we go, But as you learn, Baba had done a lot of Hatha Yoga in this lifetime for sure. So he had learned all those. You cannot say that on that day, in that moment, I'll remember how to do all those or close all of those openings. It's only because you've been practicing all those bandhas throughout lifetime, that on that day, all that knowledge, all that information is there at your fingertips. But yes, if we remember Baba's teaching, he was always remember God and remember death. Because he would say that you never know when death will come. So at least if you remember God all the time, then when death comes, you will remember God. And I think it's the same thing what Krishna has said, that remember Om as you're leaving the body. And I think we can only remember Om if we've been chanting Om all along. And then we do 3 times before the chant, and sometimes I think, okay, maybe we should now, after a few years that we've been doing it, increase it to 5, maybe 11. So that the practice, I think Leo has, do you have that up on YouTube? Or not yet? The Om.
The Om is there.
Om is
40 minutes.
all 40 minutes. What about the other 23 hours and 20 minutes?
Repeat. Until day.
But all of this study is a preparation. All of this conversation is a preparation. We are maybe that much more understanding.